Hey y'all, Ramdina here, coming at you from snowy North Carolina. Well, I survived Snowmageddon, kinda, not completely unscathed, and as a result, I am off the trail for the rest of the year. Not only that, I did a lot of stupid things this year on the trail. So to find out what the heck happened to me and the stupid things I did this year so you don't make the same mistake on the Appalachian Trail, stick around. Okay, so what stupid thing did I do that took me off the trail? Well, I'm going to kind of tell you, this will be kind of like NASCAR, where the biggest race of the year, Daytona, is at the beginning of the year. So the biggest thing I did, which didn't actually happen on the trail, was that I fell down on the ice during Snowmageddon and broke a rib. Now, how'd that happen? Well, my driveway is to get down to my truck, which was parked at the bottom of my driveway, because I live on an elevated position on top of a hill, about 800 foot, and in 800 foot I probably gain about 150 feet in elevation. So I got a pretty steep driveway, and during Snowmageddon it was covered in ice. So it's 6 o'clock in the morning with coffee in one hand and flashlight in the other. I'm heading to the truck to get on the road, go back to the Matrix for the day, and sure enough I fall down and right on my back, and I figure my feet must have gone horizontal, because when I fell out, I landed flat on my back. And when I did, I heard something give. So, had a meeting in Raleigh. I had to get to that meeting and drove down there in pain the whole way. And at one point, it was so hurtful that I felt like I was going to have to stop at an ER. But fortunately, somebody on the job gave me some painkillers, and that helped take the edge off of it. Got back and went to urgent care and had it x-rayed, and sure enough, it's broke. So if I start wincing or something right now, it's because my medicine is wearing off, and hopefully you'll understand. So that was probably the stupidest thing, because now it's taking me off the trail for the rest of the year. And there was a small section that I wanted to complete before the end of the year that would get me with a complete hike all the way from Springer Mountain at the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail all the way to the Knock, which is called the Nantahala Outdoor Center. So I've got missing a section in there from Deep Gap to Rock Gap, which is about 30 miles, give or take some. And that was my last hike, where I intended to complete it after I'd crossed over from Georgia to North Carolina, and the weather moved in on me. So didn't get to complete that, didn't get to complete it this year. Pretty disappointed about that, but there's no way with an ailing back in the next couple of weeks before the end of the year I'll be able to complete that. So I'm stuck inside, unfortunately, which is killing me, because I have trail fever big time, and I'd love to be out there in this snow. I've gotten some new equipment, getting some even newer equipment for Christmas that I'd like to test out in the winter. And unfortunately, until my back heals, or my rib heals, I'm not going to have that opportunity. Doctor says it'll probably take about 4 weeks. My research says it may take longer than that. So that's the stupidest thing I've done all year. The next stupidest thing I've done, and in no particular order, is when I'm setting up camp, I have not been checking every time for deadfall. Now, what is deadfall? Well, deadfall is any type of branch or large limb or anything above your sleeping position that has the potential to fall down and kill you. And I haven't been checking for that. You'll see deadfall all through the Appalachian Trail in the woods. You don't have to worry about it too much in a shelter, although I have seen stories of trees coming through shelters, but a branch is typically not going to do that. And if a tree decides to break off halfway up the trunk midway, there's not a thing in the world you can do about that. But you can prevent getting injured from deadfall. So what I need to be doing is, when I set up camp for the night, I need to be, before I even pick a spot, looking above me to make sure that there is not any type of limbs that look like they could fall. A lot of times you'll see what's called a widowmaker, and that's a limb that's already separated from the trunk of the tree. and has fallen part way and has just got caught up into some other trees or other branches and is not falling the rest of the way, and it's just waiting for those other branches to break, and it's going to fall the rest of the way. So that's called Widowmaker or Deadfall or Dead Man, and you have to look for those above your campsite, because the last thing you want is one of those coming through your tent and either tearing your equipment up or, worst case scenario, killing you or injuring you. So that would be a bad day. That would surely end your camping trip for that particular time. Another thing that I have done incorrectly and was a stupid thing was losing my bear bag. Yep, that's right. I lost my bear bag before I could get it hung. I did find it, but I was hanging it at twilight. The area I was at, it was around the shelter there at Roan Mountain, that's known as the highest shelter on the Appalachian Trail. I can't think of the name of it now. I'll put the name down here below. It's High Roan Mountain Shelter. That's what it is. In any case, there's some low evergreens that have grown around there, and so they're really bushy. It's on the peak of a mountain because it used to be an actual fire tower used to be there, and there's still the actual base from the fire tower there. The fire tower has just been removed. So the trees are not that big, so I was having trouble finding a tree to hang it from. I did find one, and I had laid it down under the evergreens. And the evergreens are about head high, and they're really bushy. And in the midst, from dusk, it went to getting really dark, and I could not find my bear bag anywhere. And it took me about 45 minutes to do so, to find my bear bag. And it was, I just laid it on the ground up underneath the evergreens. But the point is, I should have been carrying it with me, because particularly at night, you can get turned around real easy in the woods. And when all you've got is just a headlight on your head or a flashlight, and you're shining in the woods and you're in deep cover, a lot of bushes, a lot of shrubs, you lose your depth perception. Everything goes 2D, and so you can't see anything. And so everything's just kind of flat, and you also start losing color. So particularly in the evergreens, everything looked alike. So eventually, I did find my bear bag and did get it hung, but it took me 45 minutes. And so by that time, I was frustrated. Should have been in bed that night, and should have gotten in bed already and gotten ready to go. And I had not actually gotten my shelter set up and gotten my sleeping system set up to where I was ready to go. So I had to come back and do that. So that was just rather frustrating. So another issue I had with my bear bag was that I got it stuck in a tree, and I got it stuck too high to get it out. Now, how do you get a bear bag stuck? Well, my bear bag, I use a Z-Pax bear bag, and I got this small cord that came with it. And the rock bag that came with it. Well, I hang my bear bag PCT style, because in the area where I've been in Georgia and North Carolina, the bears are smart enough, and they probably are on up north, the bears are smart enough to know that if they see a bag hanging up there and they smell stuff hanging up there, and then they see a cord coming down from a tree on kind of a diagonal slant, that if they just swipe that cord and cut it in two, then the bag falls out of the tree, and it's a 4-course dinner or more. And so this is the cord I use. Well, when you hang it PCT style, it has to go up through these carabiners, and then it's going to go around the tree, and then it's going to come back down through this other carabiner. And there's plenty of places on the on YouTube where you can find how to hang your bear bag PCT style. The problem is that now you've got two sections of this that are hanging itself, and so that's real thin. And what happens in the night is, it happened with me, and this was on my last trip up at where I wound up at Bly Gap for the night, right after I'd crossed the Georgia border, was it rained on me. And so now this is twisted, and now it's wet, and now it does not want to let go. And so it took me about 45 minutes to get it down, because it was so wet. Even when I released the pressure on it, it still did not want to let itself down. So it took me a long time to do that, and that was very frustrating. So in the future, I'm probably going to hang it different. I'll still hang a PCT style, but instead of letting it just dangle down straight in a vertical manner like I did this time, I'll probably go ahead and take it over to a tree, and then that way the bag can't spin on its own, because it was spinning around in the wind. Very windy, very wet night, and so that's what led to that problem. Another problem I have with my my food bag is I take way too much food. Usually at the end of the trip, I've got enough food for 2 days left over. So I don't like cutting it too close. Having an extra couple meals is okay, because you never know what's going to happen. You do need to be prepared, but having a full day or a full 2 days worth of food is just dead weight you're carrying out there. So that's something that I've got to work on, that I've got to get dialed in better on my pack, and on my loadout plan is the food that I'm taking properly. Hello, Whiskers. How you doing today? So those are some of the problems that I ran into in my bear bag. Another problem, along with the cooking portion of it, is that running out of gas. I ran out of gas one time, and if I hadn't had been hiking with some other folks that I picked up along the way that were actually through hikers, then I would have been in trouble. And when I say trouble, I mean I just wouldn't have had a hot meal. So I like to have a hot meal for breakfast if I possibly can. Some oatmeal. I love coffee. Got to have my coffee to get going in the morning. And of course I like supper, warm dinner at night. So in this case, the guy was there. He had a giant canister, one of the triple size canisters. I usually take one of these small ones with me, but what I've decided now is from now on that I'm taking 2 canisters with me. One of them will be the partial canisters before. I don't like wasting this canister, so the only alternative you have not to wasting it is to bring another one. Because if I only wanted to bring one canister, then what would happen is I'd never exhaust this, and I'd wind up throwing some of it away. So you don't really incur that big a weight penalty. They make cans that are twice this size and 3 times this size. The only difference in the weight is that I am incurring a little more of a weight penalty because of the additional metal. Not enough for me to be concerned about. And so from now on, I carry 1 canister. When I run out, I put it in my pack, leave no trace, take it back with me, and I've got another canister, a full canister, to get me through the rest of the trip. So that's kind of what I'll be doing from now on with my gas with that. All right, another stupid thing I did this year that could have possibly led to some injuries. It definitely led to a couple stumbles, a couple falls. But that is that trekking poles, particularly in the fall, particularly when there's a lot of leaves on the ground, they get loading up with leaves. And if I didn't have this basket on here, they would load up with leaves all the way up to my wrist. So instead, they would just get a lot of leaves on it, and I'm ODD. And so you can sound that out for yourself, but I just... I can't stand having a bunch of leaves on there, and so I would press down with my foot to get them off as I'm walking, and there's 2 problems with that. One, now I've got one of my feet tied up that I could get mixed up in my pole, and 2, I'm looking down at my pole, I'm not watching where I'm going. Next thing you know, I hit a rock that is loose, or a root or something like that, and it's tea kettle over keister. So the best thing to do is get over it. Don't worry about the leaves. I've got baskets. They'll fall off eventually. And so over the past couple trips, I've gotten better at doing that. Another problem I have, I have had, stupid things I've done with the poles is that as I go uphill, then I'll put a lot of pressure on these poles, putting weight on them. They say you take as much as 10% of your body weight off with the poles, so that takes the weight off your legs, does put it on your arms. Problem is that you have to have these little screws right here dialed in. You have to have those tight, almost to the point where it makes it difficult for these cam locks to come undone, and particularly to close them up. Because if you don't, then that means that screw's too loose, it doesn't clamp around as good, and this right here, this pole will slowly start working itself in over the trip, and then next thing you know, it's too short, it's not doing its job, and then you got to stop and readjust your pole. So the trick is to take those screws and tighten them up, and this cam lock right here should be almost difficult to close when you close it, to make it tight around that pole. And you can see this one right here. This is one that I bent, that I fell on, probably because I was looking at the leaves instead of looking at the trail like I should have been. Another thing I've done is that a lot of people say that they don't bring trials because they're avoiding the weight penalty. That they dig their cat hole with their pole. Okay, your cat hole is supposed to be about 6 to 8 inches deep. That's not 6 to 8 inches right there. That's maybe 4.5. You're not going to dig a cat hole 6 to 8 inches deep with that. And so, you really do need to get it that deep. So, I got a trial now. This trial, people worry about weight penalties. It weighs 17 grams or 0.6 ounces. 0.6. Just barely over half an ounce. So that doesn't weigh anything. I got toothpicks that weigh as much as that. Now, if you notice, that's pretty new. I've had it on 5 trips. I haven't used it because I've wound up going around a shelter and using a privy. But I got it. I'm going to use that when I need to from now on, instead of trying to dig a cat hole with the poles. In my first trip out, I did try to dig a cat hole with the poles. Didn't work too good. So from now on, I'm going to have that trial with me. Another thing that over this past year that I did that was stupid was not testing gear. You've probably seen my Aegis Max sleeping bag review that I've done. I got out there and I'll put a link to that up here, or a card. I took that bag out without really testing it and got cold because of it. So it's a good idea to test your gear, even if it's overnight in your backyard or something like that. Of course, a lot of my hikes are just a gear test. So if you're going to do a gear test, make sure it's not gear that if it fails, that you don't have some type of backup plan, because you really need some type of backup plan so you don't get stuck out there. Speaking of backup plans, the last trip I took, I had to shorten it because of weather moving in, and I was not prepared for the weather. Now, the weather forecast said the high was supposed to be 54, but then I got a weather alert that said it was dropping down to 26. With the temperature, the ambient temperature is going to be 28 at altitude, but with the wind chill, it was going to be down around 26 and under. So I was not prepared for that. My trail runners were wet. Didn't want to wake up. Didn't want to sleep with them. I didn't want to wake up with frozen trail runners. And the biggest thing is I didn't bring a pair of gloves. That's the big problem with cold weather for me, is that I didn't have those, and so I don't want my hands to get cold, because if your hands get cold, you can tend to get pretty miserable. And if you don't use your hands, I use trekking poles, so I got to have my hands. And even if I didn't use trekking poles, I still don't want to have my hands in my pocket walking up and down the trail. That's a good way to fall, not being able to get your hands out of your pocket and face plant, and then you come back with scars. So we don't want to have any of that. I wasn't prepared for the weather, so I need to be prepared for that, although that was something that moved in that really was beyond my expectations and what the original forecast was. But had I had some gloves and some thicker equipment, then I might could have stayed out there. When I came back, I watched the weather, and it was a good decision because it got really cold really fast. It rained. I'd already been wet that time, and the wind chill was pretty bad at altitude. So I wouldn't have enjoyed that, and also I would have missed, there's several vistas on that trip, and I would have missed that. Albert Mountain Fire Tower, I would have missed seeing any type of views at that. And so I'm going to go back and do that just as soon as my back heals, my rib heals. And I want to go back on a good day when I can see out, see the train, see out in the distance, and see everything. So another thing along with that is that because I cut my trip short, that I had to catch a shuttle. Well, problem with that is that I brought some money for just $20 to put in a Ziploc bag with my and my Ziploc bag is my wallet, along with a credit card and a driver's license. But that's it. Well, the problem with that is that the shuttle that I had to call from Deep Gap was a $50 shuttle to get me back to the truck. So I didn't have enough, so I had to follow. Once the shuttle driver got me back to my truck, had to follow him into town and go to an ATM. So fortunately, he was willing to do that. And that was Zeke from Gooders Grove Hostel. So kudos to you, Zeke, for doing that for me. Or I'm sorry, Zen from Gooders Grove Hostel. They're in Franklin, North Carolina. So I appreciate that. And but I should have had that. Along with that is the fact that another stupid thing was I did not keep up with where I was in the area. So I knew where I was on that Appalachian Trail. What I didn't know is once I got to Deep Gap, it would have been a 7-mile hike back to the truck, cutting out the loop there on the Appalachian Trail. So had I known that, then I could have saved the $45 that Zen charged me. And I'm not saying that's not worth it, because I was glad to get out of the weather. Probably could have found one cheaper if I'd have had time to look for it, or had the resources to look for it. But in any case, it was well worth it for me to get out. And but had I known where I was and known that there were some other trails in the area that could have cut the corner of the trail for me and walked through a trail that's already there, already marked, and got me back to Rock Gap where my truck was, then I could have saved that money. Because I had to wait for Zen to get there for, I don't know, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I could have been 3/4 of the way to the truck on that 7-mile trip in that amount of time. So it's important to know where you are and where your bailout points are, and to have an understanding of what you're going to do if you have to bail out. What your options are. Look for all those. Have those written down or in the back of your head or in your phone or somewhere like that, so that that doesn't present a problem for you. So that's another learning experience, another stupid thing that I did. All right, so my last group of things that I'll put together, one group, is leaving stuff at home. Again, not being prepared. I have, I go through my list and everything. I lay all my items out. I think I've got everything. And once I get on a trail, I realize that I have left something off. So one of the things that we've talked about in the past that I've let off is cat crap. Yep, that's real stuff, cat crap. And that's anti-fog for my glasses. If you've watched any, particularly coming from Neil's Gap, which was my first warm season for the year, from Neil's Gap when I started there, I talked about needing cat crap. So this is anti-fog. You put on your glasses before you go. You don't need to bring this whole thing. It'll last you for a weekend. It does pretty good. This came from the snow skiing industry. So that's good to put on my glasses, because when it's really muggy outside and humid, my glasses will start fogging up. Another thing that I've left at home is my sanitizer. So I keep this clipped to my pack now all the time, even when it's in storage, so I don't forget that. This is important when you get to camp. Clean your hands up for eating, and just because you're going to be around shelters possibly where other people have been. If you have to go utilize your trowel, then you'll need to clean yourself up with this and water. But it's important to stay clean out there so you don't get some type of nasty disease or stomach virus or bug or something like that. And my comfort item that I've left before, that I really enjoy, I'm out there, and that's my sit pad, my homemade duct tape with packing bubble sit pad. So that's come in handy more than once. I made it so that I can actually, kind of like a lounger, I can put this up against a tree, up against a rock, and then put my butt right here, and boy, I'm in hog heaven when I get to camp. So those are the stupid things that I've done. Hopefully you'll learn from my stupid mistakes this year. If you got anything out of this, give me a thumbs up down there, and so that I know that you too can do stupid things. Hit that big old red subscribe button down there, or hit me right in the face at the end of this video and subscribe to my channel and get notices. And as always, appreciate you, and we'll see you out there.